Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Kubernetes and Enterprise Guide, third edition. My name is Mark Borstein. I'm the CTO of Tremolo Security, and with me, as mostly always, is my partner in crime and co-author, Scott Sorovich. Scott, how you doing this morning?
Oh, yeah, it's a bad thing. I'll take up the whole hour with that one. But no, it's just everybody has those days. I've just had that week, 2 weeks. But yeah, and hi everybody. I'm Scott Strowich, just a principal engineer, Kubernetes geek at a global tier one bank, living and breathing and living that dream of Kubernetes.
And sometimes it's a dream, and sometimes it's a waking nightmare from which we can never wake up.
It's
And
true.
and that's actually kind of a good way to talk about this week because this one's important, right? Like, yeah,
I
backups.
I definitely think so. It's important and overlooked a lot,
Yeah,
right?
I think it's the sexiest topic in enterprise architecture because if you've ever had to restore from a backup and it worked and it saved you hours upon hours of time, um, that might pique some interest.
Oh, no doubt
Um,
about that. It's
I mean, God, so I was this is nothing to do with Kubernetes, but I was working on a customer, just pre-Tremolo days, where the IDM product that I was consulting on used an Oracle database as a backend. And the database team did not want to own our non-prod database and backups. So we were just taking VM snapshots because, we're just dumb devs. We don't like Oracle turns on, it works. Cool, whatever.
oh no, when you say that,
And
Mark, I had to ask. When you say snapshot, you mean like a virtual center kind
yeah,
of like?
like literally just
Oh,
going in and hit the snapshot button,
those are not
you
backups.
know,
Okay, let's not go
every
there.
now and then. And one day, uh, we had to restore, and it failed completely. And none of the snapshots that we had worked. And we got on the horn with the Oracle DBAs, and they're like, "Yeah, you can't do a backup that way. You're screwed. Why would you ever do it this way?" Started yelling at me. I'm like, "Dog, here's the email where you said you don't want to own this, and we were forced to do it ourselves." That got real quiet real quick. But yeah, no, we had to completely rebuild the environment. And because this was considered a impediment to the devs, because an identity, if you can't log in to test the product or whatever, that's an outage, right? If the devs can't work, even if it's a non-prod environment. So we were up the entire night rebuilding this thing from scratch. It wasn't rocket science, but it was pain in the butt. Um, so
Time
yeah, I
consuming.
mean, this is one that a good backup and restore strategy is super important, and I don't think a lot of people really appreciate that.
I would agree because people just think I've got pipelines, I've got deployments, and they're not wrong, right? I mean, let's assume you have no data. Obviously, data is important, and we do
Right.
cover that in the chapter. But people will say, "Well, I'm totally no storage." Okay, well, you probably should still, because you might think you have all this, but we've all worked at places, right, where something's running. It's been running for a long time. The person or people responsible for it are no longer at the organization, and turns out you don't have any of the newer code.
Yep.
So, granted, that's not a great place to be in, but if you got that backed up, obviously you got to fix this a different way later. But
Yeah.
you've got something to do. I mean, it's something that you can use. And yeah,
And yeah, and like, there's the whole argument, well, you should treat, you shouldn't treat your clusters as pets, right? They should be cattle. They shouldn't be pets. You know, that's awesome. And that's great. And if you can pull it off, all the power to you. But like in the real world, well, I don't want to say real world. That's not fair. But at least in my own experience, there's no such thing as an infrastructure that can be treated at that level as cattle, right?
You want to think so, right? But it comes down to an outage, right? Time, like you were saying, Mark, right? You're on a crisis call,
Right.
whatever you want to call it, what you're dealing with, war rooms, blah blah. But you got to get quickly back up,
Yeah.
and that's really more of a key point. Now, could it be pipelines going through? Sure, potentially, but those back end systems could have slowdowns, too many things hitting things. Backups for Kubernetes minus data again are small, right, and quick. You're backing up text.
Well, it's not text. You're not backing up text.
Well, let me rephrase when I say
It's
that. Yeah,
binary data.
yes, but it is
It's
text
not YAML you're backing up.
size is what we're talking
Right.
about in that respect, right? You're not backing up a database.
Well, and also there are ephemeral things that you really don't want to have to reset, like keys, right? If your cluster, if you're relying on cluster authentication for things, like let's say you're talking, let's go back to our chapter on Vault, and we were using Kubernetes authentication to
Hey, bonjour, Kafka.
authenticate to Vault.
we
Hey,
got
Kafka. I'm so glad. We haven't done a live stream in a few weeks now, and the fact that you're back with us, Kafka, really
Appreciate it.
it gets me in the feels, buddy. I'm not going to lie. Thank you for coming by and saying hello.
We should probably apologize for this, Mark, right? I mean, there's a lot of different reasons for kind of being out of sync with scheduling. I'm going to just
It's
be
summer,
blunt.
man.
Summertime with
Yeah.
people, I'm covering a lot of different jobs because I've got people on vacation.
Yeah, it's we have day jobs. Well, you have a day job. I run my own company, which means some people think I get to stay at home, play video games all day. But
I've seen you on Xbox, you do. Witness it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think now that here in the U.S. summer's coming kind of to a close, schools are getting back into session, schedules are getting a little more aligned. We're gonna we did skip a chapter, and and just to follow on Kafka's lead, if you're out there, please say hello, ask questions. We love interacting with y'all. We did skip chapter 13, which is runtime security. That's a pretty complex chapter that there have been some changes, the joys of open source and the joys of quickly moving technology. So Scott, we're gonna come back that. And hey, there's no need to fear. Boris is here.
Boris.
Hey, buddy, good seeing you as always.
Late as always. That's
Hey,
me
fashionably late.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can
it's only
respect
quarter
that.
after. We didn't even start until 10 after.
We were late ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that one, Mark, like you're saying, Kuba Armor, a big one for me, right? I'm a big fan. Very unique product offering, and one of the reasons for skipping it, as you said, is it's been updated, right? It's a lot of eBPF in that, but we're going to probably do that in a 2-week session, and I want to make sure we can line up the 2 back to back. We're actually going to have somebody from Accunox
sweet
on it, so that'll be we'll do our book side first. Then we'll bring in Raul, who is a great developer from that side.
Are we going to make it through the whole lab in 1 week, or should we maybe split this up into like a 3 weeks?
That'll be a to be decided.
Now Boris is really buttering us up.
I mean,
I'll take it. Don't get me wrong, but all kidding aside, I love hearing people talk about what they're getting out of the book and the fact that they're getting good stuff out of the book, right? Like that's not just me being hey, buy this book, it'll do great stuff. Like that makes me feel good when I see somebody use anything I've created, whether it's software, documents, whatever, and said, you know what, this actually had an impact for me. This made my life easier and better.
Mark, right? I mean,
that's huge.
You guys, I mean, it takes what you think how long it takes to write stuff like this, probably multiply it by 4.
Easy.
And it's just because especially Kubernetes, right? I mean, every update we do for anybody listening and watching, you think, oh, cool, it's just gonna be a little update. It's only been 2 years, and then you go in and go, oh, No,
This
it went.
was, I mean, even the chapters that like the authentication chapter, which, for me, that's just from memorization, right? Like that's what I live and breathe every day. And I mean, that one took me a few weeks to do because there were so many changes. And we didn't even get to um the upcoming prod or GA of structured authentication because it was still a little too new. Didn't really want to get too deep into. We'll do an excursion or whatever we're calling it.
Yeah.
Um, but but Boris, I'm not gonna lie, man. You're totally invited to my birthday party. That
Hey,
that
I've never been invited.
I like Boris. I mean, come on, look at he's even got the cool AI avatar. I gotta figure out how to do one of those. But thank you,
Yeah,
Boris. No, seriously,
totally
it's
appreciate it.
totally appreciated.
My
We are
life before
not.
this was a trainer for Microsoft for everybody, and I always loved teaching. Right? It's fun. Also
Yeah,
being
it's
a
it's
geek
it's
that like
it's
to play too. But
always so much fun talking to people who are like, "Yeah, I love the book. I use it." Like it's we didn't write it to get rich, right? Like, I like to joke that the money we make off of it funds my addiction to Kona coffee. Um
yeah, hourly rate I don't want to know. Right? If we were to
yeah,
break that
no,
down, I'm
that's
pretty sure it'd be illegal in most countries, but
yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
that's not what it's for. Honestly,
Yeah.
you learn a lot yourself as well, Mark. Right? I don't care
I,
how
I
long you've
I
been
would
doing
agree
this.
with that. I mean, I know like we're gonna in the once we get past um this and Kub Armor, um next we go into like Prometheus and Open Search. And like I'd done a lot with Prometheus going into that chat. I'd never worked with Open Search. Open Search is the replacement for Elastic. And I still don't claim to really know a ton about Open Search. So I learned a lot about how logging in Kubernetes works writing that chapter. Because that logging for me was kind of like storage where it all just magically happened. Like I didn't really have to think too hard about it. Um, but yeah, learned a ton writing the book.
Oh, I
But I want to
remember
keep,
yeah. MetalLB was one of those chapters that did that to me. I'm like,
yeah.
how much did it change in 2 years? And I was like, oh wow, the whole chapter has to
Oops.
be rewritten. But without that further ado, let's
Let's talk about
get
backup.
into.
So, one of the things I find interesting about um, backups when it comes to Kubernetes is, you know, and you kind of fell into this trap a little bit too, saying you're backing up text, right? Like etcd, the
Wow.
database and I do it, that backs most clusters, not all clusters. Like if you're talking K3s and um, anything that uses KINE, not kind, but kind, to be a back end proxy for etcd with the database like we did with vCluster. Um, the data is stored differently, but in etcd it's all binary data, right? Like nothing is actually stored as
But
YAML.
that's if you're backing up etcd. In the chapter, we don't talk about that, right? We really get into you're backing up a namespace with the Velero plugin.
Okay. So
So
yeah, that's a great place to go. Where does that
that's
explain to
a
me as a lowly developer the difference between backing up etcd and backing up my cluster?
well, well, first of all, a lot of differences in it, but let's go right to etcd first, right? So if you're looking at the chapters, right, just right at the beginning, we get into this. So we'll get a little bit of an overview of just do a backup, right? Trying to encourage that. There's a lot of great backup products out there, right? And we're going to focus on Velero because it's open source, right? And it is a product. It's come a long way. There's actually commercial products that use it as its main engine, and they kind of put stuff over it and that. There's also other great products out there like Kasten from
Yep.
Veeam, great product, and then Veeam bought them. There's other also Commvault, you name it. Everybody's coming on from having something. So
And I do want to drop a bug for Veeam and for Kasten because they do have a free edition. Um, It's like what, up to 5 nodes or something like that? The
Casting
the
used to be 10 at one time, but
Okay,
I
it might be
don't know if it
10. I
is.
might be wrong
Yeah.
there. But, it's, um, I definitely wanna to we didn't do them in the book because we have a really super strict, it's gotta be open source policy. But I do wanna give them a shout out. And
Yeah,
my
there's no
buddy,
doubt.
Michael Cade, who, I think is he the field CTO over there? CTO? I don't know. He's a
Yeah.
good guy, and, Veeam does a lot of work in the community and, a lot of unsung, unappreciated, work in the community.
And
And
Caston,
it's one that doesn't get a lot of flash.
the founder of Caston, Raj, and that great team, right? And he's now over in Veeam as a CEO. So he great product. Yeah, definitely from the Veeam from the old days, just for VMs, great product. And since they've added containers with Caston, very cool product.
And
Uh,
we do have a couple of questions here.
yeah, we haven't
I'm
even got
actually going to
into it
go to
yet.
Kafka first, and then I'll come back to Boris, since we're here on the topic of Veeam. I've not used Veeam much most part. I'm a developer, so I don't really run uh, uh, production backup systems. That's usually one that is someone else's problem. You probably have a lot more thoughts there, Scott.
Well, on this one, I'm going to say probably unfortunately because I had to play with it a lot. Caston itself, back when it was in beta, I did a lot with the team. So we were on calls. They were showing me what it was going to do. It didn't exist yet, and even back then, impressive. Going right to the question you had there, Kafka. So I'm not always a big UI fan, depending, but I have to admit for backups I am, right? Because you got to look for the catalog, go do that. I mean, it's kind of tough when you don't have it. And of course, with Velero, that's why these vendors have gone out and created front ends to Velero. So you may not see on the back end that it's actually issuing Velero commands. I don't want to get into who I know was doing that at one time, but some big companies, some have probably
We all know how much big companies love open source because they don't have to pay for it.
if they can fork it and kind of do it discreetly so nobody really
Exactly.
knows, just so they don't get
Well,
the
and
flag.
one of the things that I would be a little curious about Valero is there's, Broadcom, right? Um, has just been taking a chainsaw to so much stuff that VMware built for Kubernetes. And this is an old one. I mean, this is an old, what the heck was the name of the company that they bought?
Oh yeah, when it came through.
Heptio. This was an old Heptio
Yes.
project.
Yep.
And, they killed, they just announced that they're killing like Kube Apps, which is the Helm web UI that they built. A great app. And they're
Oh, it's an
killing it.
awesome one. Well, that's they streamline, right? We all know
Yeah.
that. That's part of making more profit in that. So this is under the Tanzu catalog. I think even that's being renamed, right? But to answer Kafka in that case, yes. Velero works pretty well for dev. It can work in production. Now there are other issues to get into. Velero also does not concurrent task very well. So if you were backing up PVCs by default, it does one at a time. So picture flagging a cluster and you got, I don't know, 75 PVCs, all a terabyte. Okay, it's gonna go
Wow.
one. Now you can set up concurrency. There's ways to do that, but now you got to set values for your pods, right? How much RAM do you need? What should you limits? What should your request be? There's no nice, easy thing to do that with. And I'm not picking on it at all. There's a reason we put it into the book. Is it enterprise? Would I use it if I had 500 node cluster with database? No, I probably wouldn't. But then again, let's be honest. If you got that kind of cluster, you probably want vendor support if your backups don't work. As you were
the
saying,
reason why
Raj,
it's called the Enterprise Guide, right?
yeah, like you were saying with your snapshots, right? One thing people don't always think about is test your backups, right? There's got to be something to make sure they work. So yeah, it's almost an unfair comparison because you are talking about a product that's basically sold in the casting realm versus free. There have been front ends created by the community which seem to disappear. So there was a cool front end a while ago for Velero, but I looked for it when I was updating the chapter and couldn't find it anywhere. But the fundamentals are still the same, and that's why we kind of like to bring it up, right? It would be great. I can remember, I think the first edition, Mark, I mentioned Kasten, saying, "Ooh, maybe
Yeah.
we should think about this," because it comes with 10 nodes or whatever. But that's when we kind of decided that it's a tough one. Mention the vendor, sure, but to put it in for that, I'm okay when they offer a geek version for us, right? The people who want to play, because you can learn it, right? And that's what
Yeah,
Kasten
and
does do.
maybe I'll go see if I can bully Michael into coming on and talk
Yeah.
about it. Because again, I love showing off stuff. Um, just I
Oh, they have
can't.
some great stories they can show because they're
Yeah,
getting
it's
like
just it's
databases, like you said, Mark, right? You should have an agent for that.
yeah.
That.
We didn't want to. We didn't want you to have to sign up for something. We didn't want you to have to sign up for something in order to do a lab in the book. So we made a very strict um, open source only
Then you get the
policy.
salespeople calling you all the time,
Yeah,
which
I
could be
didn't,
good, but it depends on the day. But
it definitely wanted we shield the book enough. We didn't want to have to shield
no, 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 no.
other
And I
stuff.
want to go to Boris's question, back up a little bit higher.
Yeah,
If I'm following it correctly, like why add CD and why do that? So well, that's what we're kind of going to separate a bit here. So Mark asked a similar question when he said why add CD versus maybe Velero or any other backup, right? That's going to do it. First of all, in etcd, you've got to, of course, deal with the fact of it's all or nothing, right? You're not getting around that, right? So
right,
now, let's just say you back up your etcd, and we do talk about it in the chapter again. Now, we don't restore it, and I admit that it bothers me that I couldn't show that, but it's just because of kind and how etcd is kept and how we couldn't. It would have been a lot more complex. I think I'm going to add an excursion to explain the steps more, right? The backup's easy, but restoring etcd isn't as easy. It's not difficult,
right.
but you don't just in place it, right? You get it, you restore it with a different name, then you change your API server parameters to go to the new one. That's nothing
Well,
complex or
and like
huge.
I kind of wonder about things like generated UIDs and resource versions and
There are
yeah,
limitations with some keys. Everybody says it is the cluster, and I know I say the same thing. It's really not all though. There's just certain things that if you start from scratch, you will have some things that may not function as you think. Not the workloads, more like you
right.
were saying, Mark, with low-level keys potentially. Um, but it's good to have. One thing I can't stress enough, and admittingly, I've seen this in my team as well. To have an etcd backup that's 6 months old makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I
You're not
imagine that doesn't
restoring
age
it
well.
from. No, my opinion is a couple of days, right? What are the odds you're going to go back a month? This is not like normal backups of an OS or something. So
And what about
I like doing both.
okay, and like what about people say, well, I use GitOps, so all my manifests are in Git.
Yeah, and
I
I
mean,
think Boris, that's where Boris is going to with that, right? Deploying as code, so you've got that. And key point, like you said, Boris, are PVCs, right? Yeah, we know there should be something for that, but let's assume no PVCs, right? And like you were saying, Mark, we're deploying, I don't know, bunch of Java, bunch of Python APIs,
hey,
whatever it
no,
might be.
anybody out there? No Java jokes, no Java hate.
Or love, either way. But
Yeah, oh,
um, they it is a tougher one. Don't get me wrong. But first of all, that pipeline. I'm going to take a weird scenario, right? Let's assume Mark's deployed an API. We know something's wrong in there. It's corrupt, and we can't get somebody from Mark's team on the call. Well, who's going to kick off that pipeline now to redeploy? Now, what I could do of having access to the Velero backup is restore that namespace. I mean, it might not be the best example in the world, but it's something of saying, hey, there's this.
right.
Um, heck, if we know, I'm going to say it was really a bad thing of the cluster level, we just suddenly everything's going corrupt. are you going to get 500 developers on the phone and say, everybody, go do this
Right.
and redeploy your app? You could, but why not just restore it? Or I am going to do some testing myself. Now, we all know testing clusters upgrades are challenging. And the reason I say that is I deploy a new cluster to test. Problem is I don't have the workloads that my prod cluster has. So what could I do? Well, I could take a backup of a couple of namespaces, or heck, all the namespaces, restore them into my new cluster. Not that I'm going to use it for or production, but it'll have running workloads
Right.
that I can now test. If I had to do it with GitOps, I'd have to call the devs and say, hey, could you possibly, deploy here for me? The kind of those reasonings is to say that we've got those, and you got the file level. You can go back. Hopefully in the Git they've got all that too, but you never know, right? Maybe somebody.
Now, when you take a backup of Velero, like, can you say, okay, I've got this backup, but it's a new cluster, it's a new etcd database that I'm trying to restore into. Does that work, or is there like some corruption?
Yeah.
Like,
So when you're talking, let's even forget saying etcd, right? We might cause some confusion. So what we'll do here is, so we'll say etcd is covered. Let's not even talk about etcd existing now, because we kind of thought you can back it up in the beginning of the chapter. Now we're going to go back to just the workloads. All right, so when you say restoring it, you mean it's a new cluster, right? So you got cluster A, you've backed it up.
right. Like, I'm
You got
thinking
cluster
something
B.
is catastrophically happened.
Oh, Boris, and
Yeah.
time is evil,
Well, yeah. Time
not just etcd.
time is relative, and I'm not related. But yeah, no, that's time is one of those ones that's kind of like uh, 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 DNS, right? Like, if it's not DNS, it could be time. Um, but
Oh, Kerberos times, NTP. I mean, so many things
oh
with
yeah,
time is an
yeah,
issue, and yeah, snaps too, Boris. I was a VMware guy for a very, very long time. People misunderstand snapshots too, right? They're not meant for backups. Snaps should have a
no,
finite life of like 4 hours, right? They're meant for snap it, do what you need. Everything's good, delete snap. Let's not talk about how they grow, and they can really impact the performance of the file
oh
system
yeah,
too. But yeah, if you're snapping things that change a lot like this, it's a nightmare. But
oh yeah.
so back to that, Mark, could be much longer discussion
So,
than I thought on backups.
huh?
It's a much longer discussion on
Well,
backups than I thought
backup.
we'd have.
The thing with backups is that it's like, you know, it's like insurance. You don't think about it till you need it.
You hope you never need to use it.
Yeah,
Yep.
but you got to have it there, especially in a production environment. You've
My
got to
dad used
have,
to say he's betting he's going to die, and the insurance company's betting he's going to live.
yeah. I mean, and you look at the way, especially in an enterprise context, you probably have regulations that say you have to have a disaster and recovery plan,
Oh yeah,
right? Availability is one of the
a tested one too.
stools of security. Is one of the stool legs of security is availability, and having a disaster and recovery plan, and one that you've tested, right? Like, backups are great
Yes.
until you realize that you can't actually restore them. Um,
And most enterprises have to do a full DR test, right, too, to make sure that you in
yeah.
fact can even go to a DR. So it's I would like to get into. Let's do this, Mark. I'm going to share out my screen quick.
And I will also say that I've got I got the irrigation guy coming over to fix our broken sprinklers. So I am probably going to end up dropping off here for a little bit and letting you drive um while you hop into the lab. So if you see me drop, everybody,
Easy enough.
everything's okay. I just gotta go let the contractor in.
So you should see my book screen right now, right?
Add to the stage. There we go. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Oh wait,
So
no. Is that
no, you
me?
don't.
That's you.
No, this is me. Yeah, you didn't share out your screen.
Okay. Because I also have Adobe open to our
Oh, do you have it open for it? Yeah, no, this is
yeah,
me.
and I just realized Adobe doesn't have interesting. Adobe doesn't use native platform for their widgets. It's all their own. their own stuff.
And so we're
But
going to get
anyway,
real quick. Everybody say the Velero backup, right? So the first thing is to remember where Velero supports for backend storage, right? So just think S3 compatible object store. So we just want to make sure we call that out. A lot of backup products are like that. It depends. So what we're going to do in the chapter is, well, we need S3, right? And yeah, sure, you could have gone to Amazon and done something, but like Mark said, we just don't like having people do that. Heaven forbid you sign up for something, you forget it's there, you start transferring, who knows, and then you get a bill.
we've all seen that. We've all seen the cartoon where it's two homeless guys on a bench, and one guy says, "Yeah, I got into drugs," and the other guy says, "I left an EC2 instance on."
Yeah, definitely. It just it racks up dollars quickly, without a doubt. So we have a list of all the stuff that's supported officially. There's always a bunch of plugins, and how things work.
Storage. What the heck is storage? That's
Just
in
something
one.
that was in the list. Yeah, I don't use it. It's obviously the most common one is going to be something that is S3 or S3 compatible, which frankly in today's world, what isn't with objects, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has an S3 kind of API to go through. So what we're going to do in the chapter is we're going to deploy MinIO, MinIO. I've heard it pronounced multiple things, right? I tend to call it MinIO. And what we'll do is I have a brand new fresh cluster set up. Oh, I'm actually sharing out the app directly. Let me get off of that one. I want to share out the whole screen at the bottom. I got nothing to hide. Right, we're all friends.
Well, I don't know about Kafka. He's a little shifty, to be honest.
I don't know, both these guys. Yeah, we got both. They might team up against us. Do we see my cluster screen?
I gotta share it. Add stage. There we go. Can you make that a little
Yeah,
bit
no,
fontier?
definitely. This is my
Because
default one, right? So I gotta.
Boris might be a young whippersnapper, but I'm getting a little long in the tooth for font that small.
Hey, I'm got you by a couple years, Mark. So
Yeah.
but I can see it, and my eyes are still good. I'm fortunate there.
There we go. That's better.
Any
I
bigger
think.
than that, it's kind of going to be crazy. And I forget the prompt command that we do. Right, that shortens this prompt, Mark. Can you put it in the chat?
Oh yeah, it's where's private chat? There we go. It's export PS1
I should know this, but I never do it.
gets $. I'll
Is
do
it
it.
just is it so the working path doesn't, because obviously they get pretty big. It makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, awesome, thank you, sir.
You might also want to. There's the StreamYard is sharing your screen. Stop sharing prompt in the lower right hand corner. You might want to drag that someplace else. Or
Oh
hit the
yeah, I
hide
never know if
button.
that's visible to everybody. Yeah, Zoom does that too. Okay, cool. So right now, as I mentioned, we have it's a brand new cluster that was built using, of course, the scripts from chapter 2. So if you were looking at the namespaces, just all the normal stuff that we have. Did I, or maybe it didn't. Let's make sure what we have in Velero. We got a little bit in it. So what we're gonna do is.
Oh, that's me. I'm gonna drop off here, Scott.
I've got it. I've got it. Cool, guys. Awesome. So now you're stuck with me. That means we're going to get right into just the lab stuff. So let's quickly delete this. And cool. And if you're going along in the book, you'll see the first thing we're going to do is deploy MinIO. So we've included a deployment in here. So if we were to look at the directory, here is your the MinIO deployment. And if we were to take a quick look at it, nothing, super difficult in here, but it's creating some PVCs because that's what we're going to use for the S3 backend storage. So that'll use the provisioner that comes with Kind, which is actually from Rancher for the local provisioning. A little config and a deployment. Now, the one thing to really call out in our deployments that we got to stress, and I like to remind everybody, you'll notice that it's not the newest deployment in the world. And the reason is, as I'm sure everybody has had this pain, if you have a cluster that's saying running 130, and now it's 2 years later, and you do a latest for some vendor, it may not work on 130. And we want to minimize that frustration for any kind of readers. They're going to say, oh, I can't do the lab now because this doesn't work. We actually found this out the hard way after the first edition. We were just doing latest for almost everything. And then about 6-7 months later, started to get some issues in the Git. And it's like, oh man, we got to do this. So we also then set up the MinIO access. Obviously not the most secure way in the world, right? You don't want to do this other ways, but again, we don't want to have people to set up vault or sealed secrets or something. So we just have the username and password. We set up a service and a job. Now this job that we set up creates a bucket in MinIO using their actual command line. So we'll kind of just show this. So as we were saying, going through the chapter, we simply want to say, let's deploy, right? Something that I'm sure we all do way too much. Okay, give it a second. Take a look here. Now the crash loop is because the first pod usually has to be up and running before this can. So the setup should be, of course, live demos. And it may not matter, so let's take a look. It'll eventually clean up. So you can see that we have two services. We got the MinIO and the console. The MinIO service itself is, well, what you would use to target for the S3. And the console is going to be our UI, the front end, to actually use MinIO. So going through, we talk about this. Now we want to expose the console. So what we typically do is, by now, if you've gone through the book, you've done this a couple of times. But because we use nip.io, we usually include a script to create your ingresses. And this is no different. And the reason we do a script is we're going to grab your IP in that so we can tell you and create this for you. In the second edition, we actually had you do a lot of this yourself. It just took time in the book and space, and it had no benefit, right? So now we just say, cool, let's just do this for you. So in this case, we want to create the ingress. So it's going to be create, it doesn't take long, with any luck at least. We will take this and let's just go into, let's do a whole new one. And I'll bring that down. Okay, so we should be able to see our console. Always a good thing, especially doing live. And this is the username and password that I showed during the deployment, right? Which is packed and packed 123. Do a login. This is really nice for MinIO. Cool, easy to use front end. It is constantly changing in a good way. You'll see that we do have a bucket already called Velero. That was the job that got created during the deployment. So we kind of could have had you go in and do it yourself, but it's not a chapter on how to set up MinIO. It's just, we need this in order to work. So after having that deployed, we kind of talk about the fact that here it is, here's what got created. Now right to the actual deployment of Velero. Now before we deploy Velero, we got to have credentials for the S3. And again, we kind of talked about this in the deployment. We've created that user, packed and packed 123. So on the system where you're going to deploy Velero, you create a file. I'm calling it credentials-Velero. Right, so we just quickly edit that. Might look familiar if you've done anything with this. AWS ID and a key. Right? Normally they're much bigger than this, but it depends what you're using. So using that, we're going to use the Velero tool. We're going to download the binary, which we include right here. It's a script that goes off and gets it for you. Again, basically just going over to GitHub, pulling down what it needs. You'll see again, we do hard code the version because we know it works with the cluster. If you're upgrading your cluster at some point, doing your own kind, get the latest version. Things will change a little bit, but it'll all be very, very similar. So we're going to use this really long command line now for Velero, which sets all the options that we need. And what we're going to do here is tell it, okay, we're going to install, we're using AWS. We know we're not, but we're using an S3 target. So that's all this is saying. Saying we're going to use the plugin for AWS. The bucket name's Velero. There's my secret file. We don't have volume snapshots, right? And snapshots, by the way, and I know Boris, you were saying this too, and I think Kafka, not the same as VMware snapshots, right? I mean, this gets confusing in IT all the time. The same word, that means different things where it's going. So snapshots on like a cloud provider, if they're supported, it'll take your data, snap it, very similar to like a VMware, but it takes the state and time of that data and then backs it up that way. Well, because we're using S3 on-prem with MinIO, we don't have that support. So we can't do that. Telling us some of the S3 to go to, and here's the target. It's minio.velero.svc, and then the port. Now, of course, because it's in the same namespace, that's why we can say just use minio.velero.svc. Now, because the book formatting doesn't let you copy and paste, if anybody's had this painful experience, part of the PDF and Acrobat, you'd have to reformat the line. So I've already done that in Notepad. I'm ready to say, okay, cool, run my Velero. Shouldn't take long. And if we go back to looking at the pods, and I say it doesn't take long, it really does not take long. Right? Suddenly now we've got our Velero pod and the node agent. If we were to take a look at the logs, you can just say that it says available, unavailable, making sure that it is in fact on here. 001, it should be coming up, but again, live demos. And let's just take a quick look here at, oh yeah, it should be fine. Should come up as healthy. So we got the worker count. Yeah, we'll kind of continue on from there. We'll see if it does in fact give us an issue or not. Okay, so we explained through here all of the options. Again, depending on what you're using. If you're doing MinIO and S3 on-prem, we have those options in here. If you're going to Amazon, I've set it up with multiple providers. It all works pretty much the same. Once you get it deployed, you get a bunch of CRDs, right? Some new custom resources. And you get backups, backup storage locations, schedules, volume snapshot location, credentials, and the repos. So at that point, you've got your backup ready to do your backups for your workloads. Now, there's no way we'll get through all of this today. But before we get into a backup, we have to talk about the PVCs. This is actually the first edition where we actually explain backing up PVCs. So in the first two, we just kind of focused on the workloads themselves. If you go to the first edition, it was 5-6 years ago. So yeah, data was still out there with Kubernetes, but it wasn't prevalent. Second edition it was, and by now, of course, it is. People doing database as a service, very common. I don't know of many clusters that don't have some kind of persistent storage offering. So because we can't do a snapshot on these, like we could on a CSP, you have to add an add-on product. Or I shouldn't say product. It's a helper that will let you do your backing up of PVCs. Now, in Velero, there's really two. There's the legacy one called Restic, and there's the most current one, which is called, I believe it's Copia. Admittedly, I've never actually looked into exactly how that is pronounced. That is a default one. So this is just telling it, Velero, how it can go back up the persistent data. So again, we're going to use the compare in this. And if we go through here, we explain all the reasonings for this and how to set it up. You've got the opt-in approach. You've got the opt-out approach. I kind of like myself the opt-out, and that's going to be back up everything except for X or Y. You do opt-in, you've got to say back up nothing except for X, Y, Z, A, B, C down the line. The reason I don't like that is Kubernetes is very dynamic, right? You probably want more to be included than are going to be excluded. I mean, that's going to vary by cluster, workload, and vendor. But I find that the opt-out is usually the better way. Plus, I kind of like that way because maybe a developer thinks they don't need a backup, but yet undoubtedly 6 months later, they say, hey, could you possibly find this? And if you happen to have it, that's great. So again, it depends on the approach for yourself. We kind of explain in here of how that works when you're making the backups, right? We're going to do the opt-out approach, which was, again, everything gets backed up except for what? So in this case, I'm excluding things I call volume 2, volume 3, just picking some random names. So in that case, we then say, okay, we're going to back up, and then the opt-in approach, saying, okay, don't back up anything except for volume 1, volume 2, right? Everybody has their own ideas, depends what you want. So far, any questions or comments from anybody? Making sure everybody's still here. Cool. So if we were going through here, we could do probably today is running a one-time cluster backup. So we're going to run a backup of it. So the first thing we want to do is actually have some workloads, right? So we've created a couple of things, really primarily, well, I'm going to say one for most part, is a BusyBox PVC example. And if we were taking a look here, again, so if we were taking a look at our didn't mean to do that. There we go, our example. Yep, there it is. So simple one, it's going to create a namespace called demo. We're going to use it a couple of times for doing restores and backups. We're just going to create a test claim called demo. It's doing just a gig. Then we'll deploy a simple little BusyBox PVC. And what we're going to do there is we're going to mount the volume into MNT original data. The other reason we're going to do it are MNT, and then we're going to create a file, just so we can see that we backed up something, right? So not super exciting, but hey, let's deploy that demo. So it's creating, running, and let's to verify for sanity purposes. We know the PVC is there. It would have had a crash loop, but just in case. So there's our test claim. It's been bound. And let's go back to our main section again. Cool. So again, following through, we say, yep, there it is. We've tested it. And let's just, to verify it, we're going to go in and take a look at, let's exec into it. Do the right namespace. And I don't have bash, right? Just sh. Okay, cool. So as we see over in here, we're going to say take a look over at, and I forgot where I mounted everything now. It should just be an MNT. Cool. There's my original data, as I called it. We just say, let's, let's just go right into it to do it so we can see it. Test file 1, test file 2, test file 3, test file 4, whatever we got to do. Just adding some data. Obviously, as you know, typically you would do this data in a normal kind of container, and with no persistent attachment, you'd lose it, right? In this case, we're going to the PVC, so we won't lose the data. So we go through and say, okay, do these. We do it through an exec to just do that way. And now that they're in there, we've got a pod. We've got persistent data. We're going to create a backup. And pretty simple. And Kafka, this is where your thing comes in, right? If you're using Kasten, this is a lot easier. Now, Kasten lets you do a lot this way too, right? Kasten is really a front end to the APIs that they have. But it does make life a lot easier for doing the backups and maintaining them. I mean, this is okay at a small scale, but as it gets, to more clusters and scaling just in general, it becomes very difficult to maintain all of this. So in this case, cool, submitted. Doesn't look like a lot, all right? But if we use some Velero commands, and of course still processing, so let's just do a describe. Oh boy, didn't do that. Cool. So you can see not a lot to it. It shouldn't take long to back up, and the other command should now. No, it hasn't come up yet. So everything should be backed up. Just making sure we don't have any labels. We didn't do any selectors. When you do the backups, you can set options, all covered throughout chapter or in the chapter. So you can see in here, we just say, okay, yep, it's been submitted. You can do the describe. A little bit easier to format here, where you can see it more than you can on my screen, just because of the sheer size of the screen. And with any luck, we have all of our data. Let's just see. Yep. And I should be able to. Yes, so we are having the resource list having an issue in Velero. So this is a min.io thing. Let's go back over to here. Oh, we got Mark back.
Hey, Mark. Hey guys, what'd I miss?
We started we deployed Velero, deployed our application, which is a PVC, right? Just a busy box. And I've done a backup.
Sweet.
So one thing here to point out is you'll see that here's my objects. It says there's a Velero bucket, 34 objects. We can see that backups, initial backup.
Nice.
And then you'll notice that, and we talked about the fact of the Restic plugin, or of course, again, Copia, however it's pronounced. And there's my demo. So you can actually at least look to see the files are there. And the fact that we see some sizes usually means it's going to work, but we never know. You definitely want to test this, and we will, right? And one great way to test things is to always put it into a different namespace. I can't really stress that enough if you're testing something. First of all, you might think, why would I test in production? Sometimes you want to.
I don't always test, but when I do, it's always in production.
On a Friday afternoon.
Friday afternoon, exactly.
You got to be brave. Nothing wrong with that. So all we got up to in this one, Mark, was getting into the backup so far. We did describe, we were talking about what got backed up. Not a ton of items in ours. You can also set up jobs in Prometheus in this. Mark will be talking about these, I'm going to say next chapter, whenever that is in a couple weeks. And then, of course, we go in, I show the min.io to say, okay, cool, here's where you can go see your structure. Now, this differs from what you were saying earlier, right? Mark was etcd. You're like, it's binary in that. Well, this is a little bit different because we're going for objects. To be honest, I've never tried to, say, download one of these objects just to see what it is. Obviously, the JSON would be easy enough, right? If we were to see that, we would know for a fact of that we could read it, right? It's just JSON. It's text. So let's just let's download one.
I do want to be mindful of folks' time. We are at the top of the hour, Scott.
Went quick with that. So yeah, this is just to show that in fact it did download or that the backup kicked off. You can verify here. It's even showing the Kate's version. So it's kind of a good sanity check to go in and say, okay, cool, we know our stuff is here. Now what we'll wind up doing, I'll make sure I keep the cluster, is we will restore that data next week. Might be, Mark, a conversation that we bring in your buddy, because we can do about a half an hour for the labs. And, if we can have a guest speaker for part of it.
Yeah, let's see.
Potentially.
I'll reach out to Michael and see if he's interested in hanging out with us for a bit.
I like Boris there. He's old as heck. It's interesting when you're younger, you want to think about it's cool when you're young, but when you're older, we all start saying, "Yeah, I'm the oldest. No, I'm the oldest. I'm super old." And always remember, like Indiana Jones says, it's not the age, it's the mileage.
Oh yeah, but sometimes I think when Indy screams, "You belong in a museum," I go, "Yeah, I feel that."
I get the mileage one. My years of hockey, I might look fairly younger than what I am, but tell you internally, I am triple the age of what I am. You know, it's bad when I got my shoulder scanned and my orthopedic said, your shoulder is an 85-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just and he says, I normally say that jokingly. He goes, but no. He says, yours looks like somebody I would scan. I said, that's great to hear. I'm not 85. Just so everybody knows. I'm not quite that old.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, so same bat channel next week, everybody. And we'll go ahead and wrap this chapter up. And then we'll either go back to
I think we'll go back to Cooper Armor, I hope, Mark,
you
to be
think we'll
honest.
go back to Cooper Armor after that? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I'm gonna point out a couple things that changed, right, just for people, and it's gonna happen, all right, with deployments. Cooper Armor being a security product, man, it's ever evolving, right?
Yeah.
It's the feedback they take from the community and their business and their customers. But guys, one of my favorite chapters, right, when I wrote it, it was a very complex chapter, and I found
Oh,
bugs
come on. The
in.
authentication chapter wasn't your favorite? That
It
hurts.
was. It put me to sleep. I mean, that was awesome, Marcus. No, I'm just kidding. Totally. It no, you know, and
When they make the audio book, that one's going to be a real that's going to be a real selling point.
yeah, without a doubt. It's no, Cooper Harbor. I found bugs in App Armor. That was fun. Right? That chapter got so complex. I was writing it on my cruise, as you might recall, Mark, because it was just getting to be very in depth with bugs and talking to people. It was quite fun. Surprisingly, even on a cruise, my wife was very understanding. That's my story, and that's what I've been told to stick to.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
it
you
was
want to stick to one like that.
she gets
That's a
that,
safe
yeah.
bet.
I had to get concierge. She was happy then. Didn't matter. Everybody, as always, we appreciate you sticking around, listening to us.
Absolutely. And please, if you have purchased the book, especially on Amazon, take a moment, leave a review. It makes a huge difference. I do have to say one thing that's really nice is we have made it past the point where we got a lot of fall off in the second edition in interest, and we're still seeing strong interest in the
We're
third
doing it
edition.
after a year, right? Over a year
Yeah,
now, and it.
not quite a year. We'll be at a year in October, I think.
Yeah, and that
So
definitely
we're
happens, you're right, because things come out, and we stop talking about it. People,
yeah,
we're doing these, um, and as Kafka, you know, Boris, anybody else, we do try to bring in other things, like we had Pixie. We want
yep.
to make sure we break it up to just other technology. And honestly, I think a lot of this that's helping us, Mark, is people like Boris, Kafka, others too, that they talk about it. We like
Oh
hearing
yeah,
this. We like
absolutely.
criticism too. I'm all for it, right?
I mean, if you want to send Scott criticism, that's cool. I'm too
I'm
thin-skinned
numb.
for it. I
I
only
can
want
do it.
compliment.
Yeah, I've gotten to that point. No, it helps us to get better. So, you know, granted, sometimes it's an opinion, not so much criticism, but we're all for it. Of course, we like the positive stuff too.
Yeah.
It's always good to hear.
So okay, cool. So we'll see everybody next week to wrap up the lab. And yeah, let's leave it there. So
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Boris, Kafka, for joining us and hopefully having a nice laugh. And we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you very much, everybody.